watch this event of grace go on, and they didn't really jump into the story. So we were saying, get into the game. And then last week we were talking about the young man who's kneeling here in the painting, and the younger son who had left home, basically wishing his father was dead, took his inheritance and went out in wild living. And his father, whenever he came back home, his father threw his arms around the kid and threw a party, killed the fatted calf. And we talked about how we leave home every time we look for life or fulfillment or something outside of the will of God. And we have to understand that there's nothing good for us outside of the will of God. Now, I fight this, and I'm talking about me, the preacher, 35-year-old, got nothing left to live for. My wild oats have been sown long ago. But still, there's a part of me that feels like there is life maybe just a little bit outside of God somewhere. That's what happens every time we sin. Every time we sin, we basically are saying, this sin has probably got a little bit more life than not sinning. You know what I'm saying? And so there's this part of us that's always drawing us away after the worldly ways, the promises of the world that says there's more fulfillment out there than there is at home. That's what we talked about last week. So let's see where the story leads us tonight. Someone say, I'm ready. I'm ready. Someone say it, we're going somewhere. Better watch out. I'm about to go black preacher on you. I like it, man. I'm telling you, I was born a black preacher inside here. I just ended up an albino. I don't know what's wrong with me with this white skin. I know. One day, I hope. I don't know how. T.D. Jakes is in there somewhere. No, it's this way. Luke 15:25. Meanwhile, the older son, someone say the older son, he was out in the field, and when he came near the house, he heard this music and dancing. So he called over one of the servants. He said, hey, what's going on? And this guy says, your brother's come home, and your father's killed the fatted calf because he has come back safe and sound. Isn't that amazing? And the older brother became not happy, but angry, and refused to go in. Now, why would you refuse to go in? Your brother's come home. What's funny is most of us, I probably identify with the older brother, don't we? Mad at him. All right, let's look at the painting, okay? So, if you haven't figured it out yet, this man that's standing over here on the right is the older brother. He is one of the bystanders. He's not on the platform embracing in this beautiful picture of grace, that platform that they're standing on. We'll go back to the very first picture. Yeah, let's do that. In the very first picture, I don't like it because it's portrait instead of landscape, but that's okay. You want to do that? All right, right there. You can see this little platform at the bottom, right? Basically, what's happening is this picture of grace, this holy picture of God's grace is what's happening on the platform. That's what's in the game. That's where it's at. This is inside the story. Everyone else was outside, like we talked about, the bystanders. And here he is off of the platform. Now, this is his brother, but he doesn't want anything to do with him. He doesn't want anything to do with him. Okay, we can go back to the other picture now because, like I said, I can't stand portrait. I need landscape in my life. So, move these out of my way. Okay. He just stands there at the side of the platform. He's so much like his father, though. Let's look at them. They both have these awesome, like, hipster beards, right? It was cool before it was cool, right? They have the same red cloaks here. And they have, even Rembrandt paints the same shading of light on both of them, on their faces. One of them, however, the light almost like comes out, all over his face, and then it's coming out through his hands, the father. And we look over here at the older brother. The light is on his face, but his hands are kind of painted more cold and withdrawn into themselves. The father bends toward his returning son. The elder son stands straight up, leaning on a staff that will not bend. You can barely see it, but it's there. The father's cloak is spread open wide. Almost like the wings of God, like just wrapped around under the shadow of the Almighty, basically. The elder son's cloak, it just hangs flat against his body. The father's hands are spread open to hug his younger son, and the elder son's hands are clasped together, closed, not receiving. This painting could be called the parable of the lost sons, not just the lost son, because as we look at this story, And as we look in the painting and we see that, yes, one of them ran away, and it's very obvious what he has done. It's very obvious his sin. The other one is just as far away from the Father in his heart, though he stayed home the whole time. On the outside, he did all the things a good son is supposed to do, but on the inside, he wandered far away from his father. And how would this happen? We're going to explore that tonight. The more I think about the elder son, the more I identify with him. At first, we all identify with the younger son, don't we? We see ourselves, we came to a place where we fell away from God, or we weren't following God, or we ran away from God. We spit in his face. So many of us packed the altars, myself included, last week, and we see ourselves, we identify with this young son that keep getting pulled away from the home and into the world and drawn and enticed by all these addictions and things that we do. And we identify with this young son that comes back to God, and God throws his arms around us in this moment of beauty that we're just hanging out, just God loving on us. And we're just, man, this love is intense, but it's not very long after receiving the grace of God that we find ourselves used to it and standing up. And all of a sudden, the story's not about us anymore. Now, all of a sudden, the story changes to some other person that God has his arms around. And all of a sudden, we start wondering, does God love me as much as he loves him? How many of you guys have siblings? Raise your hand if you have siblings. Right? Have you ever wondered, does mom and dad love me as much as my brother? Raise your hand. Come on, if that's you. If you've ever wondered that, they don't love me. They love my brother, my sister more than me. Oh, I knew that would start a chatter. I hate my brother. He stole all the love because he was born. It isn't long before we get into that performance trap. And now instead of trying to please the world in a distant land, we just do the same thing. We just do it at home, don't we? And now we start trying to please God and trying to earn our love from him. It's a weird thing, but there's a place where you can just release yourself in God and be like, I don't have to perform. But I do all these things because I love you. I don't do these things to earn your love so that you'll love me. Does that make sense? It's good that we want to please God and that we long for what he longs for, but somehow we fall into this trap that we can earn God's love. And that's not good. So there's 3 identifiers of the older brother that you can tell if the older brother is in your heart tonight. Someone say, get ready. Look at your neighbor, shake their arms, say, get ready. He's talking about you tonight. The first thing that identifies the older brother inside of you is resentment. You're lost. The lost son, one was lost in the faraway land, the other was lost in resentment. He was lost in his resentment. And being a pastor and kind of the older brother to so many people in the faith, they used to be older than me when I started in campus ministry. I was 19 years old, and everyone was older than me. I was like, hey, you get in line. Yeah. And I had to just kind of be the older brother. But as time's gone on, now I'm 35, now I am truly the older brother. I'm like halfway between you and your parents, maybe even a little further than halfway. And so I started to see myself as the older brother in the faith. I see myself in his shoes. Sometimes I work so hard to get it right. Is anybody here a perfectionist? Anybody? Anybody here just like you want it, when you do something, you want to do it right. You want to do the good job. You know what I'm talking about? That's a good thing. You want to get it right. I've heard it said, I'm the youngest son actually, but I've heard it said that the oldest, thank you, that the oldest sons or daughters usually are the ones that try harder, right, to please their parents. Would anybody agree with that? And that the younger ones, we just kind of do what we want, and yeah. And the older siblings say, hey, you can't do that. What are you doing? You can't do that. Mom's going to go crazy on you. And we're like, and us younger kids are like, she'll forgive me, right? And these older siblings, they start to get mad at us younger siblings. And they say, oh, you just don't respect mom and dad. You need to get your crap together. And that is your sister? Yes, Karis, you are the younger. Yeah, and she's like, you got to get your mom and dad are going to be... Yeah, okay. I sometimes work so hard to get things right. I want to do it right. I want to do a good job. I want to please the Lord. And if I'm not careful, I do it sometimes out of the wrong motives. And as soon as I give up, or as soon as I give my all, it's like I'm doing something for God. And I'm like, man, this is great, I'm doing this for God, And I turn around and I look, and I start noticing other people aren't going as hard in the paint as I am. And I start, that guy's not giving his all. That girl's not giving her all. That's the older brother in us. Everyone else got to go and make college friends whenever I was in college, right? So I came to WT. Jones 622 is where I lived. You know the naked story, the naked man story. Got in bed with my roommate. Talked about that, worship on the lawn. Had a wild, crazy college experience. It was great. It was wonderful. But where other people were going out and partying and having fun and losing themselves and all that and stuff like that, I was starting up a campus ministry. So all my friends were in theater, right? And I was too. And we were like the top, me and these two other dudes were like the top theater guys in our class. We were hitting all the lead roles. And the professors, Mr. Brantley and Perry, and them were looking at us to be kind of the next kind of like, I don't know, what you call those leading dudes, I guess, in theater. And so that was going on my freshman year, right? But then my sophomore year, I started up a campus ministry. And so I'm spending a lot of time like praying over people and walking around praying and meeting with people and being a pastor and stuff like that. So I'm kind of pulling, not on purpose, but I'm kind of pulling away from my theater friends because I'm doing ministry, right? And so my theater friends, they got to go out and enjoy all these things, and they got invited to all the reindeer games, right? And I didn't get invited to the reindeer games because Rudolph didn't get invited to the games because I'm a pastor and nobody wants to hang out and get all drunk and hammered with a pastor in the room. And so I totally got left out of all the reindeer games. And so Santa came to me one night and said, hey, you want to fly my sleigh tonight? And I said, yes. Yes, God, I want to fly your sleigh tonight. And so I took on ministry. You see what I did there? Okay. So I flew God's sleigh. Of course, he's the one flying. But I'm yes, God, I'll do what you want me to do. Okay. But I'm not calling God Santa. Okay, follow me. There's a parallel going on here. I'm not saying there's not a Santa, Cheney. I'm not saying there's not a Santa. I love Santa. You guys are crazy. And so, while I was out creating a ministry where everybody else got to have college friends, like even to this day, I look back sometimes on my college experience, and I didn't get to do that because I didn't get to have those college friends because I was out making a place so other people could have college friends. I was too busy putting on my Batman mask and saving the world while my friends were just having a good old time. And I had people call me all kinds of names since I was 19 years old. I mean, people have called me all kinds of names. People that don't understand me, people who don't understand us, they call us all kinds of things. And you got to imagine over time hearing that over and over and over and over and over again, that they call you an evil person, which what you're doing is giving your life up to help other people. Like I remember whenever I was young and I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, the only thing I knew that God wanted me to do was to help people. And so I wanted to help people, and I didn't know what that would look like. It ended up being this. But at the time, I didn't know what it was. But imagine this. You're going out helping people, like dying to yourself, going out, helping, praying for people at 3 a.m, doing all kinds of stuff that you can to do to help people. And then they call you, like this cult leader, or they call you this, all kinds of bad things. Oh, Mikey, he's bad. Imagine what that does to your psyche all this time. I'm like, God, I'm doing everything I can for you. And it seemed like some other people just had it so easy. It seemed like other people, man, people just loved them and, made fan pages for them and all this kind of stuff. And I was like giving my life for this cause. And it was like people would just walk away. It was hard. I saw myself as a missionary at 19 years old, reaching the campus, reaching out to a world that was post-Christian, a world that says, yeah, I'm a Christian, but then they don't want anything to do with God, a world that looks at me like I'm an alien because I actually believe the Bible and actually live by the Bible. And they're like, oh, Mikey, I know you're supposed to like the Bible, but you don't have to live like it. That's crazy. and to have a real relationship with God, not just a theoretical one, a world that has no idea that they're driving 90 miles an hour straight toward the edge of the canyon, getting ready to just fly off and go to an eternal crazy destination that is not good. And I'm sitting there waving my hands around while my other friends are just having fun. I'm saying, hey, watch out, you're about to, Mikey, you're too serious. Mikey, what are you all, why do you got to be serious all the time? No one wants to hang out with you. When God scanned the classroom and said, who's going to go for me? I didn't avoid eye contact with him and hope that he didn't see me. I said, yes. I said, take me, Lord God. Pick me. Use me, God. I'll do whatever, whenever, however, whatever. You can mess with my future. You can do whatever you want with my life. And as I watched those who called themselves Christians but had little fruit on the tree, being their hipster selves, traveling every weekend, going out just with their little group of friends, not really caring about the lost and hurting world and people that didn't have friends, not reaching out to those who didn't know Jesus. Just their main priority was being cool and looking cool and going out and having their little cool friends to go have fun with. That's all they cared about, being okay with just receiving God's love, but never turning around and giving it back to other people, or just had their own little cliques and their own little friend group, or just doing the minimum requirement, and that just made me mad. Because when I read the scriptures, I'm like, where does this say? We're just going to be rich and just have everything, and just everything's going to be hunky-dory, and we're going to live our lives for ourselves, and that's all it's going to be about. And I would get mad because I had given my whole life to do something for others. Luke 15:28b. So, this angry older brother, so his father went out and he pleaded with him. It's a beautiful thing about God. But he answered his father, look, all these years I've been slaving, someone say slaving, for you and never disobeyed your orders. God, I've been good for you. I've done everything. Well, everybody else was like going out and getting hammered, man. I was fasting and praying when everyone else was out just having fun and going to the movies and all this kind of stuff. Man, I was out talking with a kid who was trying to commit suicide. Lord, what's going on here? I have slaved for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so that I could go and celebrate with my friends. In this complaint, obedience and duty have become a burden, and service to God has become slavery. I can stay at home, be a good boy, and still not live the life of freedom that God has for me, still not live the life to its fullest. There are many elder sons and daughters who are lost while still at home. And it used to be fun, right? And the presence of God used to be so thick. And you remember how when he threw his arms around you, it was like he was speaking to you all the time. But somewhere along the line, I don't know when it happened, but incrementally, maybe degree by degree, you somehow just lost that first love. You lost that love and feeling. And now it's gone. You don't know that song. It's fine. It used to be fun, but you lost it along the way somewhere. And this lostness is characterized by judgment and condemnation, anger. You find yourself angry all the time, resentment towards people, bitterness and jealousy. The younger son's sin is easy to see, like we said before, but the lostness of the elder son is much harder to see. It's much more pernicious, much more evil. It's much more hidden because it attaches itself to the underside of your virtue. It attaches itself to the underside of your goodness. I've done these good things, and therefore I deserve to be bitter towards those who don't. It's just a righteous anger, they would say. The lostness of the elder son is much harder to see. He did all the right things. He was obedient. He was dutiful. He was hardworking. People respected him and admired him outwardly. The older son was faultless. But, someone say, but, when confronted with his father's joy over the return of his younger brother, this dark power erupts in him and boils over the surface. See, he had this great Christian, shrink-wrapped, Christianity. The t-shirt and everything. Great. But something about whenever the father got excited about somebody else that didn't do as much as he did, caused this dark power to rise up inside of him, to boil over and become something and unleash something that he didn't know he had. I wonder which does more damage. Think about this. What does more damage? The lust of this younger brother going out to the brothels and sleeping with prostitutes is probably one of the worst things we can think of besides murder. Or the resentment of the older brother. That's much harder. Yes? There we are. Okay. That's right. Like I said, it's harder to see, right? The lights went out. I meant to do that. I was just joking. That really wasn't on purpose. I have no idea what just happened. Anyway, it's the lostness of the elder brother is harder to see. I wonder which does more damage, the lust of the younger brother or the resentment of the older brother. If I'm not careful, if I'm not paying attention, I can fall into this moralistic intensity that makes me increasingly more difficult to feel at home in my Father's house. I find myself angry, at Facebook. Oh, this is wrong, and that's wrong, and this is wrong, and that's wrong, and racism is wrong, and this is wrong, and that's wrong, and these people are wrong, and all these things. And I find this, I'm pointing this finger, this judgmental finger. Like I said last week, if you want to see the depravity of human beings, just go and look at someone's Facebook feed and all the comments that come through, and then people are pointing their fingers. Man, they've really embraced this older brother thing really well. I've become less free. I've become less spontaneous. I've become less playful, right? I become a very heavy person, and people are like, oh my gosh, I don't want to really be around you. The first thing is lost in resentment. I don't know if you ever found yourself there. The second thing is lost our joy, or we're without joy. This is the second identifier of the older brother in you, is that you're without joy. Listen to the words that he uses, and he attacks his benevolent, good father. He uses these words that are self-righteous, self-pitying, jealous words. In these words, I hear a deeper complaint from the heart that feels like it did not receive what it was due. I deserve this, and I didn't get it. That's what he's saying. It is a complaint that cries out, I tried so hard, I did so much, and in the end, it doesn't even matter. You got that song. That's this complaint. I tried so hard, I did so much, and I still have not received what others get so easily. How come it's so hard for me? How come they get off the hook? How come they don't get, you find yourself pointing your finger. Why do people not thank me? Man, I gave them this thing, and they didn't even thank me for it. I don't know if you ever caught yourself saying that. If you did, don't worry. Just look straight ahead. No one will know it was you. I don't know why people don't invite me. If that's you, again, just look forward. No one knows you. Why do people not honor me? Why did people disrespect me? All these things. When the older brother comes home, he hears this music. Now imagine yourself in the scene. He hears the music and the dancing. He sees the dancing. And he knew that there was joy. There's this awesome party going on without him. I don't know if this ever happened to you before. This awesome party's going on. Like, whoa, when do we get violin players that could do dubstep? What is going on here? What's happening? Immediately he becomes suspicious. Why wasn't I informed? They must not have not wanted to invite me, is the first thought he thinks. How come that's the first thought we think whenever somebody else is off doing something? You see them on Facebook, hey, selfie, wait, why wasn't I invited, right? I know that doesn't happen in the 21st century, but that happened back in Rembrandt's day, and that happened back in Jesus' day. I know that's never happened to you, but I just want you to put yourself in their place, because that's a very hard thing to go through. And you're like, wait, they said they were busy doing stuff, and now they're doing stuff with my friends. Without me. Why? Why, God? Immediately becomes suspicious, like he's been intentionally left out, right? And he thinks to himself, maybe, I must not be fun enough. And you can either project that onto other people, hey, you did something bad to me, or you can take it inward to yourself. This is depression. His anger turns inward, and it says, man, I must not be good enough for people to want to hang out with me. And he calls over one of the servants, and he takes the anger outward, actually. And he says, What's this all about? What's going on? There's this fear that he's being excluded again, that I was kept out of things. Why was I not informed? And the servant, he doesn't know this. He's just like, dude, your bro is home. Your father's even killed that big fat calf that we've been fattening up for years. He killed that thing, and we're going to have ribeyes for dinner. Come on in. There's leftovers for you. Leftovers. Leftovers! But this shout of joy from this dude who's a servant is not received by the older brother. Instead of relief and gratitude, oh, thank God my brother's home. I was hoping he wasn't dead in a ditch somewhere, or anywhere for that matter. I don't care, ditch or not. I'm just glad he's not dead. The servant's joy causes the opposite. In fact, the more the servant rejoices, the more it causes the older brother to withdraw. Have you ever found yourself there before? He refused to go in. Here's the thing. Joy and resentment cannot coexist. Say it with me. Joy and resentment cannot coexist. You cannot have joy in your life if you feel like you're sad and depressed all the time. You can't have joy in your life as long as you have resentment in your heart. You just can't. They don't coexist. They're oil and water. If you want to have joy in your life, you're going to have to trade off and give God your resentment, because you can't have both. You can't have joy and resentment. This experience of not being able to enter into the joy is that of a resentful heart. He couldn't enter into his father's joy. His inner complaint paralyzed him and let the darkness just engulf him. I don't know if you've ever just embraced a dark thought. A dark thought like, I suck. Or I could kill that person. I don't know if you've ever had a thought that just engulfed you. You know, you felt the darkness. You knew it was wrong to think it, but you just got, I am a loser. And you just allowed that dark thought. That's what happens here. He let this darkness engulf him. The more I see the elder son in me, the more I realize how deep down how deeply rooted this lostness really is, and how hard it is to return home from here. Because returning home from a lustful escapade is much easier than returning home from a cold anger that has deep roots in the shadows of my being. The resentment is not something that can be easily distinguished and dealt with rationally, and it seems that the resentments and complaints are mysteriously tied to such praiseworthy attitudes. I've done so good. At the very moment that I want to speak out in my most generous self, I want to give all these things, I find myself caught in anger and resentment. Just whenever I do my best to accomplish a task well, I find myself questioning why others don't do as hard of a job or put in as much as I do. Just when I think that I'm capable of overcoming my temptations, I feel frustration towards those who have given in to theirs. This is the older brother. Verse 28, the older brother became angry and refused to go in. Someone say, but thank God. So his father, what does he do? Does he get mad at him? He could have been like, dude, what is wrong with you? Your brother is home. What is wrong with you? But no, it says his father went out to him, where he was at. He found the young son, where he ran out to meet the young son, but he also went out to meet the older son too. And what does he do? He pleads with him to come in. Please, come on, son, come inside. Come inside. So the question is, can the older brother really change? The father wants not only his young son back, but he also wants his older son back too. The young son is usually typified in the person who's new to the church, the freshman, who just came in, maybe didn't have any plans but beer and women, and somehow got into the maroon platoon, and they came to a fifth quarter, and then a two-post, and then the altar, and from there he found himself with Jesus. But the older son is typified normally with people who've been in lead for a while. We used to call it the serve team. And before long, it's like they get mad. They're like, why does Mikey care so much about the freshmen and the new people? Why is everything we do focused towards them? Here I am. No one notices me. Here I am. What does all my stuff not matter? I don't know why I'm even doing this anymore. I put up this trussing every week. I hang up these lights all the time. I set up this heavy piano. We go and unload this thing and all this stuff, and then we just tear it down at the end of the night. What does it even matter? the older brother. The father wants not just the younger son, but also the older son as well. The elder son needs to be found. He has to be found because when it's really easy to see the younger son's sin, but the older son could die in his sin of resentment and never know it. He's got to be found just like the young son has to be found. And so the father goes out to him just like he goes out to the young son. And he begs him to lead him back into the house of joy. Someone say the house of joy. This is hard. Remember week 1, we talked about the greatest thing in life you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. And why do you have to learn that? Because of conditional love. And we have to unlearn that and learn unconditional love that only comes from God himself and from hopefully people who've been transformed by that love of God. That's the only way that we can do it. But you have to learn it because we live in this world of trade-offs and ifs. That was week 1. This week, I want to say something to you that I want you to maybe take this down. This was called the Westminster's Confession. I put a little Wesleyan spin on it because of Calvinism. Don't got time to go into that, so I'm going to just say this. Man's chief end is to love God and to enjoy him forever. I asked my apprentices last Friday when we were sitting around at the coffee shop, and I said, are you enjoying God today? Have you been enjoying God lately? You know what's weird is that's a really random thought. That's like a kind of a far-off thought, isn't it, sometimes? It's like, enjoy him. Well, I don't know. I mean, I've been trying to please him. I think I enjoy him. I think I'm more like, kind of like hiding from him because I'm afraid he's going to look over my shoulder and be like, oh, wrong. You know what I'm saying? I'm asking you tonight, are you enjoying him? Because the end goal of our being by the time we die is to have all this crud taken out of our heart and to just love God and get all the stuff between you and God out of the way so you can just love him and just enjoy him. That's your end goal. Not to save the world. That will be a byproduct. Your end goal is to love God and to enjoy him forever. So God doesn't love the younger son any more than the elder. In the story, the father goes out to him just like he did the younger, and he urges him to come in, and he says, my son. Someone say, my son. You are with me always, and everything I have is yours. This Greek word is a Greek word that is an affectionate address that Luke uses here, and it literally means, my child, hey, I love you just as much. The father doesn't defend himself, and he doesn't comment on the older son's, jerkiness, how he's being a jerk right now. The father moves directly beyond all that stress in the relationship when he says, you are with me always. He stresses the relationship, you and me, buddy. He has made him a part of his daily life, keeping everything. Everything I have is yours. The third indication of the older brother that is in you is we're lost in rivalry. Lost in rivalry. This is what the younger son says to the father when he comes out to him. Instead of saying, hey, Dad, he's like, hey, this son of yours, this is not my brother, and you, doesn't even sound like my father. This son of yours, when he comes back after swallowing up all your property and with his loose women, and you kill this calf that we've been fattening, are you kidding me? With the words, this son of yours, he distanced himself from his brother as well as from his father. The elder son no longer has a brother or a father in his mind. Both have become strangers to him. Everything loses its spontaneity in his life. I become self-conscious, calculated. Stop trusting other people's intentions. Each little move calls for a counter move. Each remark begs an analysis. How can I get back around and win? This is the pathology of the darkness. The father does not compare his two sons. Each child of God has a unique place in the heart of God. So, I have to let go of comparison, all rivalry, and all comparison, all competition. Not competition in fun games, but competition in being. And we have to surrender to the Father's love. This requires a leap of faith because I have little experience with non-comparing love. I have little experience with people who actually love me unconditionally. That's why it's taking a leap of faith. Outside of the light out in the darkness outside of the house of this lovely place where God's love is and this platform where the light is, outside the house in the darkness, outside of the light, my younger brother seems to be more loved by my father than me. In fact, outside of the light, I cannot even see him as my brother. So how do we break this? Breaking the older brother in you. The only way to break the darkness is through trust and gratitude. These are two big things. Without trust, you won't let yourself be found. You won't let yourself be found. Trust is this deep inner conviction that the Father wants me home. Now, again, as the older brother, you don't trust those intentions of God. You're like, I don't even know if he wants me home. I don't even know if I come home if he's going to want me there. Trust is this deep inner conviction that the Father wants me home. As long as I doubt that I am worth finding and put myself down as less loved than my brother, I cannot be found. As long as I put off this idea that I am not worth finding, that God doesn't really want me home, that all he wants is my younger brother who's run off and he forgot that I was here, I have to keep saying to myself, God is looking for you. He's looking for me. He will go anywhere to find you. He loves you. He wants you home. He cannot rest unless he has you home. That's why he goes out on the bench and he looks every day for his lost son. There's a very strong, dark voice in me, though, that says the opposite is true. God isn't really interested in me. He prefers the repentant sinner. Oh, that guy's got a real testimony. He was on drugs and did all kinds of crazy stuff. Man, wow, he's really awesome. I've been in church my whole life, and I guess, I don't know. I've been on lead for a long time now, and I don't know if God still sees me. Maybe I don't matter to him as much anymore. I'm not his favorite son. This dark voice is so strong that I need enormous spiritual energy to trust that the Father wants me home as much as he does the younger son. The second part is gratitude. So you have to trust his intentions. The devil's going to get up in your head and try to monkey with his intentions and try to make you think that God doesn't want you there, that he doesn't love you, that he's not crazy about you. And the second one is gratitude. Along with trust, there must be gratitude. And gratitude is the opposite of resentment. I'll say this, resentment and gratitude cannot coexist. Just like resentment and joy can't coexist, resentment and gratitude also cannot exist. Since resentment blocks this perception that life is a gift, that we have so many things that have been given to us. All we see when we have resentment is the one thing that's going wrong, and we miss all the great things that God's done. Just like Adam in the garden. The devil got his eyes on one tree that he couldn't have, when he could have all the other trees of the whole garden. How many, who knows how many other fruit there were, how many various kinds of fruit there were in the garden. There's probably even pineapples out there. You don't need any other fruit if you got pineapple, if you ask me. But the devil somehow was able to take his eyes off of everything God had given him and pointed it to the one thing he couldn't have. And that's what resentment does. Resentment takes your eyes off of all the gifts of God, and it points to the one thing that's going wrong in your life, and you forget that life is a gift. You forget all the little things in your life that matter so much. So resentment and gratitude also cannot coexist. We forget that we have been given life and what we've been given. I used to think that gratitude was just a spontaneous response that happened when somebody did something nice to you. Oh, thank you. But I've found that gratitude is so much more of a discipline than it is just a spontaneous feeling. Gratitude is a discipline that involves a conscious choice. It takes you, the thing that's going to draw your focus is that one thing. You have to consciously discipline yourself to begin to look and thank God for all the other things. To which people say, oh, that's just trite. That's what you need to be focused on. I'm saying, don't be focused on that. You can look at it out one eye, and then with the other eye, look at all the good things that are going on in your life. But it's going to take discipline. There's an Estonian proverb that says, he who does not thank for little will not thank for much. The only way to beat the older brother in you is through trusting God and his intentions and being grateful, forcing yourself to be grateful, because there's this dark energy inside of us that wants to compare, that gets resentful, that has lost its joy. See, here's Jesus on the other hand. He's the Father's Son. When we come home, what does Jesus do? Does he stand back and be like, oh, you don't love me as much as you love those lost people that came home? Jesus jumps up and down, throws a party alongside the Father every time a lost son comes home. That's Jesus. Jesus actually says, you know what, God, I'll go out and I'll find him. And he did. He left the 99 for the one. He's the one that never leaves the one behind. Let's pray. Lord, I feel like it's much more embarrassing in our day and age to be the older brother than the younger brother, even though the younger brother's sin is so much more, visible. I feel like everybody expects that. We all sin, that kind of thing. But, Lord, to be vulnerable and say that we've become the older brother, that can be even harder, I think, because that's just the gross stuff that's hidden underneath the virtue and the shell and the mask that we wear. And that's hard. So, God, I pray that you would just move inside of our hearts tonight. And, it's so hidden. It's like, it's definitely not obvious like it was last week. So only you can reveal this in our hearts. Only you can reveal it if this is happening inside of us. It's so well hidden. So, God, I just pray right now that you would move inside of our hearts. Okay. Every week, we do some kind of response. Why? Why do we do that? Why is that a thing we do? Why do we do the same thing over and over again? It's just like the song said, if we sing 100 billion songs and they still fall shy, I'm just going to keep singing 100 billion, songs again and again and again because you're so much worth all of that. Well, the Bible says from glory to glory, we're transformed into the very image of Christ. And so it's like every week we're taking one more look inside and saying, okay, God, you can have this. Okay, next week, okay, God, you can have this. Okay, God, you can have this. The best thing you can do is be vulnerable before God. So tonight, if you found yourself resentful, if that's the thing that really kind of hit you, you got some people that you've been resenting for whatever reason, maybe they even deserve it, but it's holding you back. I want you to just go ahead and stand where you're at. 2, if you've lost the joy, you're lost without joy, just go ahead and stand on up. Don't even fight it. Just go ahead. Just go ahead. And 3, if you find yourself comparing yourself, just constantly comparing yourself with everybody else all the time, just go ahead and stand on up. Just go ahead and stand on up. We're going to sing this song tonight, and I just want us to, everybody in the room, if you want to, let's just come to these altars and pray. If you need special prayer, we're going to have the guys with the glow sticks around the outside of the room, and you can pray with them. But let's just get our heart alone with God, and if you find the older brother inside of you somewhere, man, let's just lay it at the altar, and let's leave it there. Amen? Amen. Let's do it. Come on down.